Howdy friends, I've got another video for you. This will actually be quick because it's, just a little unboxing. I I think I'm about to so this is an eBay purchase. So that's why I keep saying I think. I am crossing off a Wishlist deck of mine. But I'm also, it was a little bit of a gamble on eBay because I saw it was a buy it now item, and this seller doesn't have a lot of tarot decks. In fact, this is the only one. So I bought it knowing that they're not sort of, in that world. They're not a dealer in that world, and it's missing the guidebook, which normally wouldn't be something that I care about. Except this is a Robert M. Place deck, and I really like his writing. But this is a deck that's frequently hard to find, often very expensive, and it wasn't up for auction. It was a buy it now. So when I saw it, I went, all right, I'm getting it, because it was about half what it usually costs. So it's a little bit of a risk, and I am searching for the guidebook in the hopes that I can get it, but hopefully the deck itself is in good shape. So this is the Vampire Tarot by Robert M. Place. So the box itself is in decent shape, but it's just the cards. So that'll be interesting. So I thought I would open it up and let's see how well I did. I usually don't like themed decks, but this is one that I've always been interested in, partly because, well, I'm not even like that super interested in vampire mythology. I just sort of, I read Dracula a few times when I was a kid. It's a book. Honestly, it's like, the art is beautiful. I've always loved his art. I like his writing, and I guess it's sort of stupid, but one of my first crushes when I was a little gay boy was Bela Lugosi as Dracula. That's the kind of weirdo I am, folks. Literally that weird. I'm still a fan of a man in a cape. I'll just put that out there. So I assume these are not in order. So I don't even it said all 78 cards were here, so I'm actually gonna count as we go through. So 1, 2, 3. All right, so it looks like everything's here. Well, that's good. They're not in order, but this is the first time I'm actually seeing it in person. I kind of figured they wouldn't be in order. But on the bright side, I can actually see how it shuffles right out of the gate. This is not a new deck for most people. It's been, it's been out there in the world. It actually shuffles much better than I thought it would. I have seen this deck trimmed, and it's sort of slightly tempting to trim it. Although seeing it now in person, the white borders don't bother me that much. So it overhand shuffles really well. I don't know that my hands are large enough to get a riffle shuffle out of it, but no. Try that one more time. Yeah, it's just sort of too big for me. But on the bright side, it's not it's a wobbly table. It's not super hard to shuffle that way, and it's not sticky, which is nice because glossy decks frequently can be. So I figured I would just look at it a little bit. If you haven't seen this deck, it's called the Vampire Tarot, and it has sort of vampire themes, particularly Dracula, which is hence the connection to my little love affair with Bela Lugosi as Dracula. I thought the cardstock was going to be super thick, but it's not. It's actually really sort of like flexible. So it's not like those really super thick oracle cards. There are a couple, I sort of have been looking at this deck and hungering for it over the years. So there are a couple things about it that I you know, I wasn't like, you know, like every deck, nothing's perfect. So the major arcana has some sort of interesting tweaks, specifically at the beginning. For example, the High Priestess is Mina. One of the reasons why I would like to read the book is because, having read Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's hard for me to sort of connect the High Priestess to Mina in the story. So, but I know that, you know, Robert M. Place does not do things haphazardly. So it, you know, it's interesting, and but I would like, so, you know, actually, while I'm talking about this, like, if anyone out there has the book or knows where I might be able to get it, I know that there's an app for Google Play. I'd love to get the physical book. So anyway, just throwing that out there. So, but I'd love to sort of hear why he chose what he chose. You know, like the Count, the sort, you know, this sort of craggy initial version of the Count, as the Emperor, makes a little bit more sense, you know, to me, just sort of instinctively. But the other thing that I like about this deck, which is really cool, is that the court cards are not fictional characters. They are people who would have been in Bram Stoker's sphere. So, like the actress Ellen Terry, which I think is really cool. And the suits are steaks, knives, steaks, knives, garlic flowers, and holy water. So he takes different iterations of Dracula. So there's, you know, the first film version of Dracula was Nosferatu, which was very controversial at the time because essentially it was, you know, Dracula was protected by copyright. And the making of Nosferatu essentially resulted in a copyright lawsuit. You know, little things like that can interestingly impact a reading, you know. So you have the Six of Swords, you know, with, you know, Nosferatu there. It's an interesting style that Robert M. Place works with because they're sort of Rider-Waite, sort of Pip inspired. But, you know, you can sort of let what you know about something like this affect a reading in an interesting way. There's Florence Stoker. This is the only Robert M. Place deck I have, actually. I really like this Moon card. And so we get some modern interpretations too. I'm so happy to have this, I have to tell you, because it's a deck I have really wanted for a long time. The cards are in pretty good shape. They don't smell like they've been smoky or anything. Lord Byron. Oh, there's Paramount Coleman Smith. I always knew about this one, but it's nice to see it in person. Henry Irving. The Magician is interesting. So, you know, again, I'd love to sort of know, is this Dracula? I mean, certainly we have the cape and the bow tie and all of that, but, you know, what's his thinking? Oh, I really want the book. You know, what's funny about eBay is that I looked after I got this, and I found a copy with the book that was up for auction. And I thought, you know, I could cancel this order or return this and, you know, try to win that. But, you know, who knows? And how I could end up spending 3 times as much because it was up for auction. So, yeah, Bela Lugosi as Dracula was really sort of a formative, you know, fantastic experience of my childhood. You know, not that I was alive when the movie initially came out, but I remember seeing it on TV when I was young. That Judgment card is cool. And, I don't know. I still kind of think, you know, Bela Lugosi to me is still sort of the hottest Dracula. I don't know. The accent, for one thing. I'm not big on accents, but like Eastern European accents for some reason totally get me. So in an interesting way, this sort of has a close relationship pip-wise to like The Wild Unknown, because you get a relationship between the suit symbols, emblems, and the image on the card, but they're not necessarily explicitly Rider-Waite. Gosh, this is so beautiful. I really am excited to have this, you know, even without the book, because I'm curious to know what his thinking was in choosing what he chose. But exterior of that, I just really am happy to have this deck that I've wanted for a really long time, and for it to be in really good shape. And the box is in good shape, so that's a nice thing. And gosh, is it beautiful in person. I mean, I've seen walkthroughs of this on YouTube, because I really wanted to have it. Oh, that's interesting as a death card. A little Christopher Lee action there. So, I'm just going through this quickly as I ramble. Really stunning. I've never seen one of his decks in person. As I've talked about many times, Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe I have a love affair with too. Just because, when I started reading like adult literature, as a teen, Edgar Allan Poe was sort of my first relationship to sort of Gothic literature, and I am still enchanted by his stories. He's one of my favorite writers. Really witty little nods to things in the innkeeper in the movie, and then things that aren't necessarily related to the movie. So, this card reminds me of why I haven't purchased one of his decks before. This is the World card, which you kind of get the alchemical stuff of Robert M. Place, which it's not my gig, so I haven't really delved into his work too much because I feel like it might be beyond me. This and the other deck that's on my wish list is one of his, is the Buddha Tarot, another one that's really hard to find. But again, that's a world that I know a little bit about, because my therapist was a Buddhist monk for a while in his younger days, and I've read a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh and the like, Pema Chodron, as a way initially of sort of dealing with my anxiety issues, which have helped. So it's really cool to see one of his decks in person and to have this one. I know a lot of the people that he based the court cards on, but I don't know all of them. So I don't, for example, know Lord Rutherun. So I'd like the book again to kind of know who's who. I can read without it, but, and I can do research, certainly. There's Mr. Stoker himself. Another reason why I haven't dug too deep into decks like this is, for one thing, I'm always sort of dubious about decks that have computer generated art, because sometimes they can be cold and feel really computer generated, but the style that he works in is so it feels like woodblock print or linoleum block print. So the thing that I like about a lot of decks that are artist made is that there aren't a lot of generations between the hand and the eye, between the artist's hand and the eye of the viewer, and sometimes with more digital decks it feels digital. This really doesn't. It does have a feeling of like a woodblock print that was hand carved. Another moment from the movie. And things that I like about decks like that are the image may or may not play a part in a pip card. Like this image could be something that means something in the reading, but in other times it may just be about the three of cups, in this case, or three of holy water, being about growth and coming together, and the sort of numerological meaning that we learn. It's a really witty temperance. So I'm looking forward to exploring this. The wagon instead of the chariot. Fate instead of the wheel. Pretty traditional Three of Swords here. There's a pretty powerful Eight of Wands, right? The Tower. Coleridge. Charlotte Stoker and the Ace of Swords. So let's do a little reading sample and see how that plays out. I'm going to reorder this, put this deck in order and look at it in order so I can sort of see everything in its own context and whatnot. But I just sort of want to see how it feels. Like, you know, some people have said, oh, you know, this is a deck that I wouldn't necessarily read with. It's an art deck or collector deck, which I kind of get, you know what I mean? Because it feels like it would be hard to, you know, even with something like the Bohemian Gothic Tarot, it's not, like, it's got a theme, but it's not so themed in a specific realm. You know, it's just sort of dark. This is very specifically vampire themed. You know, a lot of the art that, you know, it's interesting that it's the Vampire Tarot and the suits are the tools that a vampire slayer or that push vampires away. So it is the Vampire Tarot, but its suits sort of exist in the realm of you know, repelling or killing a vampire, right? So that's interesting. So should we do a question? Let's really test myself here. Where might I be able to find the book that goes with this deck? Can I be that specific? I am not a person who reads questions like that, but let's see. Let's see if I can figure it out, you guys. This could be potentially really embarrassing. I mean, I suppose I could just buy another copy of the deck, right? I love shuffling. All right. So whenever I decide that it's time to stop shuffling, I shuffle 3 more times. That's sort of my new little... It's not a thing that matters. It's just something I've been doing. All right. So where might I be able to find the book that goes with this lovely little deck? The Madman, which would be the Hanged Man, the Hermit, and the Ace of Swords. So that's interesting. So just going on impulse, I would say looking in some place you're not expecting, sort of peopled by someone who kind of knows where things might be hidden, and a place where smart people hang out, where there's some intellectual conversation going on. So somewhere you're not expecting, being held by someone who knows where secret things are hidden, and where learning happens or smart people hang out. So there you go. It looks really nice in spreads. So I can definitely see using this deck. It's really beautiful. Oh, I'm so happy to have it. You know, again, I don't think it needs to be trimmed. I kind of like it the way it is. And, you know, with decks that are hard to get, I'm always reluctant to trim them. You know, they do have sharp corners. I thought about rounding them, but even then, it sort of feels appropriate. And I'm actually gotten so used to Il Manighello decks and their sharp corners that I don't mind them. So that is a deck I've wanted for a long time, and I have it in my collection. And if you happen to be the Hermit in my last reading and know where I can find this book, let me know. Thanks again. Be good.